Indeed, Mr. Terry Halvorsen is our first guest speaker, our keynote this morning, and it's a distinct pleasure on behalf of AFCEA to welcome and introduce him this morning. He is certainly no stranger to most people in this room. He is an active, constructive, and innovative leader in the Department of Defense. Active, constructive, and innovative. Key attributes: the high energy he brings to his task, the breadth at which his vision reaches, and the contacts that he's constantly building in an audience like this and an audience like this around the world. He just returned from Europe, where he was involved in some critical conversations. He's the principal advisor to the Secretary of Defense for Information Management, Information Technology, and Information Assurance. He gives all our mission partners engaged in C4I, IT, and cyber, I think, great and steady support, and provides strategy, leadership, and guidance to create a unified information management and technology vision for the department. It's a pleasure to have him with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Mr. Terry Halvorsen.
Thanks, Bob. Well, welcome. First, let me say thank you to AFCEA for doing a spectacular event today. I think as you had a chance to walk through the area, the demos that are out there, the booths are just better than they were in years past. They just keep getting better. I want to thank Alan and his DISA team. I think they've done a great job coordinating with AFCEA. And I do want to echo the thanks to all of the industry partners that are here today. Many of you know one of my themes is we have to continue to really build partnerships with industry, with our allies industry. We've got to get this right. It is, I think, the most important thing that we can get right in the coming years. With that in mind, we have a couple new companies here today. I'm not going to name all of them, but I just thought it would be good, first times here. Carbon Black, ForcePoint, FishMe, Think Logical, TrustWave Government Solutions. Thank you for being first-timers here. Hope you will keep coming back. I know there are other first-timers out there. Thank you, too. I do think it is imperative that industry play with the government and with our allies if we're going to keep our advantages. I'm going to put my notes here because I like to walk around. I do think we're in an interesting position today with respect to cyber, IT, call it whatever you want to call it. You've got the Internet of Things really starting to happen everywhere, where it is becoming more pervasive everywhere that you look. I think we have non-IT industries very much understanding the importance of IT and the importance of cybersecurity to a degree that has not been seen in the past. You certainly have government every level as a big interest item. I mean, when you noted that cybersecurity and cyber actions are a high priority for the president, you kind of know you've made it. You know, we're on that top list now. That's all good. But now it's time to have a bit of a conversation, I think, about culture change. Because I think we are now at a point where all of this means we've got to change culture. Cyber culture, if you want to call it that, tech culture, I don't care what you call it. But here are some things I think that we all have to work on. The first one is how we in the government look at industry and how industry looks at the government. You've heard me say this, many of you have been to these comments before. I am, by nature, I like history. You know, I was a history, economics, couldn't make up what else I wanted to do major in college because I knew the Army was going to employ me, so I, just studied anything I wanted. It was good. But history can help us. One of the reasons, not the reason, but one of the reasons that I believe that the Allies won the Second World War, and the U.S. being part of that, we had an ability during the Second World War to have partnerships with industry that enabled us to field technology, field tactics, field thought pieces faster than anybody else. It was not uncommon for people who had the day before be in industry to the very next day be inside the DOD. There were programs out where industry was actually at some point paying salaries for DOD donated employees. I'm not going there. I'm not asking you to donate your employees. Not yet. It's a good program. And I will apologize for something else. If I mumble a little bit today, I broke a crown Monday. And of course, Dennis' business being what it is, I can't get in to see him till tomorrow. So the patch is starting to get a little old. I do think we've got to get back to some of that environment. You will see us trying to do that. We started fairly small with our program this year to put civilians into industry and to bring industry into the staff. I'm happy to say we've gotten ability to expand that. So next year, and don't hold me to this exact number, but I think next year I can go to 50 civilians out in industry and 50 industry back into various parts of the government. I think it's critical we all commit to doing that. And that's at big, small, medium companies and at different parts of the government. Some of them at the DOD level, some of them at the service level, and frankly, if we can make it work, some of them even at the tactical level. Some of the industry people. We got problems everywhere, and I think there are pieces where industry can help us. But I think better that partnership where we understand what industry's doing, industry understands better the DOD and other parts of the government environment is a win for all of us. That's going to take some different thought. We have lots of rules today about how we must engage with industry. They were all written with goodness in mind. They may not all today be relevant. We've got to be willing to think that on both sides, and I will say harder on the government, so this is more on us. How do we structure that so that we protect that everybody gets even shot at our competition, but that we can have the right dialogue with industry? And I think that's something culturally we're going to have to think about and probably mean some changes in the way we think about this. I think on industry's case, where I see the biggest cultural problem in industry is crosstalk in industry. Now, as you all know, we at DOD are like a fine Swiss watch when it comes to coordinating across the services. We are the leading example for how a big institution comes completely harmoniously together. Now, we laugh a little with that, and sometimes day to day, I would tell you, we all know that was a bit of sarcasm. It's hard. But I will say this, when we fight, when it is really time to do our mission and we fight, we are very harmonious, and we are generally not just with U.S., but we're happy today. We've got some of our UK, we've got other allies here today. We seem to be able to make that work. And we do that fairly seamlessly once we get into the war. We're in the war, guys. We are in cyber war. There is no doubt about that today. We can have big discussions about are we in phase 1, are we in phase 2, are we in a cyber shooting war? I don't really care how you define it. We're at war today in cyber. You, in industry, are at war today in cyber. You're being probed and attacked as much as we are, both by criminal activity, nation-state activity, unknown activity, probably being probed by some of your own activity out there. We are all in cyber war. So we have to now put aside some of our problems, and that means industry does too, and figure out how do we work together. I've said this, it will continue to be my theme. People ask me, how do you get to do business with DOD? Well, one of the ways is be part of the consortium that brings us the best set of answers. There is not one company out there, I don't think, in any topic you would do with DOD, any business area, that has all of the answers. I think that is particularly true in cyber, and double particularly true, if that's a phrase, in the terms of cybersecurity. The pace of change in cyber is what makes it different from every other warfare that we've ever had in the past. The speed that cyber moves at is its big distinguishing feature. It's like this: whatever we put out today is not what we're going to use tomorrow. That's particularly problematic for DOD. We've got to become more agile. We need your help to do that. But you need to be able to come in and say, listen, we, this group of companies, we saw your problem. We all can't solve it independently, but we, industry, have come together in this group to present you, here is the solution set that we think will work. It's the best of breed from all of us bringing together the best of industry. Now, I know that's hard because sometimes, and we don't like to talk about this, but it's real. This is a win or lose world sometimes. It is. And if you're not on that best of breed, you didn't get any business. I got that. That's hard, but we got to get past that. And the goal ought to be, how do you get to be the best of breed? We really have to have that level of dialogue if we're going to continue with our advantages that make not just the U.S., but all our allies the best and keep us in the forefront. Now, that's all very advantageous to you, too. One of the reasons that you all have vested interest in me doing well at my business and all our allies doing well at that business is it gives you a stable marketplace to work in. Without that, you'd be doing business in not, and we have examples of that in the world, and it's not a good place for business. You know, we are, in fact, by our very nature of what we do, supporting business. So we have got to get that partnership really strong, and we've got to be able to have better dialogue. Another area we have to get better at on the cybersecurity is how do we push data out to industry more globally about what's going on in the cybersecurity world. That's hard. I don't want anybody here to minimize that that's a big challenge, but we have to take it on in the government and get better. We've got to be able to give you better data and work with you about what's going on in the cybersecurity world so that you can raise your bar. We have to do that together. We can't alone do that, neither can you. How do we do that part? Be demanding customers of us. I have no problem with people saying, hey, you and DOD have got to give better data. You and DHS got to give better data. You should demand that of us. We have to figure out how to do that where we don't compromise certain aspects of that data that are key to our national security. That's going to be hard sometimes, but we can do better in that area. Part of that means, though, on industry, you've got to do better with your internal security. Some of you are very good, some of you are in the middle, and some of you have a lot of work to do. We need to be able to help you with that. I think we're willing to do that. We're open to changing culture in a lot of areas. So a couple specific things that I want to tell you that we're going to do, because I think these are big problems for both of us. We have an accreditation and certification process today that the technical term for is it completely sucks. It's costing you way too much money. It's costing us way too much time. Now, it's easy for everybody to say, well, that's just government bureaucracy. It's not. It's not that anybody got that. It is the change in technologies and the speed at which delivering. Okay, that's the why. How do we fix that? Here's what I think, and here's what we're going to try to do. Richard Hale, Marianne Bailey, most of you know Richard and Marianne. They are my heads of security. They're going to host a meeting with the government experts and industry experts. The meeting's going to go like this. We think we found a venue. It has one door into the room and one door out. We're going to put all those experts in the room. We're going to lock it, put Marines outside the door, and say you can come out when you have figured out a process we can all live with. Here's what I think that process might look like. Today, we try to certify and accreditate individual products, individual software, individual everything. That can't sustain. What I think may come out of this is where we say to industry, if you can demonstrate the following features in your own process, you're certified. You, that industry, that company, that firm are certified in these areas, and we're going to accept your products. Now, that sounds really easy, and everybody in industry always I say that, clap, clap, clap. Okay, it's not that easy. What that means for you is to get there, we are going to have some people come to the industry, and you're going to have to open up to stuff that you might not like to open up to. And we'll protect that, and won't share it with your partners. But if we want to get there, it's going to take a big shift in my part to say we can trust industry. It's going to take a shift in your part to say in this one we can trust the government. That's probably the key area, the key word. If I was going to have a watchword for today, it would be trust. We're doing the same thing today with our allies. Today, some of you may know, the UK is working on the first major government instance of going to it happens to be the Microsoft 365 cloud, but they're doing it in the first big on-prem, meaning it's going to be inside the UK's control C2, moving not just the MOD, but most of the government to this cloud. I think that's the right way for us to go. We are today supporting, we've got people over in the MOD, we've got their ops director here with us today. We're having even government to government to learn how to do trust better. I mean, they're letting my individuals sitting over there see their contracts and everything else. That's a big breakthrough. We're sending stuff back. We may have a little experience with doing contracted C2. And very candidly, when we first started that wasn't the best picture in life. I think today we know how better to at least write those requirements, and we're effectively doing some where we've brought the C2 back but retained the advantages the contractor brings. We're trying to share that with our allies. That's all about trust. How open are you willing to be? We've got to be that way across the board. I think today we have an incredible opportunity. Bob mentioned I was in Europe. I was at an AFCEA co-sponsored event. It's called SPADE in Germany. Lots of our allied European countries there, an outstanding event. Once again, we confirmed is we're all at least the DOD equivalent level looking at similar solutions. I think you will find that many of our allies, particularly within the Five Eyes, will be on common platforms with common operating systems and common standards across the board for everything from cloud to office systems to data center structure. If we can get there, that gives us an unbelievable warfare advantage. It also gives us an unbelievable business opportunity to better embrace commercial, bring the advantages that commercial can to the war business, bring what we do well in the war business to the commercial sector, and everybody wins. In my end, people say, why do you so hang up on that? In my end, it gives us an ability, if we get that right, to be able to share on routine basis data that we need to between the allies, but maybe most importantly, when I need to stand up quickly, networks and data exchange instantaneously at tremendously lower cost. Some of you have heard me say this before. One of the big issues I have to deal with, I think we call it the 16-star letter. Maybe it's more than that. Al gets to deal with it. It's 24, I don't know. Every COCOM commander signed a letter to me that said, hey, Halvorsen, you need to get off whatever and deliver us a better mission partner environment. We need to deal with our allies better every day. And it's not just in traditional comms. We need to be able to move data with them. We need to be able to hook ISR up to them when we need to. But we need to do that in such a way that everybody's data who needs to be separated and protected is protected, but all the people who need to see it instantaneously can see it when they need to. Small problem. Al should have this finished tomorrow. As you can tell, that is a major, major problem. It is the panacea of what we want in the end. I mean, that is a description of what we all want. Today, I think we are on path, if we will stay there, to deliver that in 3 to 5 years. With each year, even in the next 6 months, being better at that. Industry's got to play in that. And in that case, it's got to be global industry playing in that. So in addition to saying I need you to all be better here, I want you to all be partnering globally too. I don't want much, I know. But we've got to work to get that done. Starts with how do we get a better accreditation certification process. You heard we're going to do that. Some of you will be on that team in the physical sense. All of you who want to be can be on that team in the virtual sense. We will take the input. Similar to, if some of you remember, about 18 months ago, for the first time, we put all our cloud stuff out there and said, help us write it. And you all helped us write what I think is a better cloud structure. We're going to redo that this summer too, since there's been some changes. That's the other thing I'm trying to change. I really am trying to get rid of the culture of our whole instruction and policy process because it doesn't serve us well in the IT business. I want these documents to be living and breathing, where we have them posted in areas you can keep commenting on fully. We'll review those comments when they get to the point, and that could be that could be 2 weeks. There's some times where I think this will change so fast. What we wrote down, might be outdated 2 weeks from the day we publish it. That's okay. We ought to acknowledge that, be able to fix it. But that's a different culture set about speed too. It's a different culture set inside DOD, and frankly, it's a different culture set for you too because it's sharing the policies. You're not used to doing that either. Used to writing your policy and turning your company to be really fast, but now I'm asking you to play in the global community. I think we have to do that. Where am I at in time, Kate? 5 minutes. I promised Kate I would only talk a certain amount of time because I think the best part of this is questions, because then you all get to remind me of things I didn't talk about, and we get to have that spirited dialogue, which is fun. Okay, I do want to talk a little bit about Silicon Valley. For me, and I think for all of DOD, Silicon Valley is not a place, physical place. It is a state of mind. Silicon Valley does not just exist in the physical location of Silicon Valley. Now, that said, it's a big mecca for that. And one of the reasons it's a mecca, it has one of that very key ingredients that need a Silicon Valley. Everybody know what that is? Somebody said it. What's the key ingredient there? Money. It has whole lots of investment capital. Other places do, but if you were adding it up right now, they probably have more than others. And there is a cultural climate there that does foster that type of innovation. It exists other places. So when I say Silicon Valley today, what I'm really talking about is how do we get that culture? How do we get that innovation culture everywhere? We're going to talk about that. Is DOD innovative? Yes, we are. Are we innovative to the state that either the secretary, the DepSecDef, the chairman, vice chairman, or me would want? No, we're not. I would argue this, though, and we're going to get to see a little bit this afternoon. I would ask if you ask any CEO of any big company, are they happy with their innovation? The answer would be no. So today, we're going to ask that of Meg Whitman. We'll see what she says. I think we all have to get that culture. And the bigger you are, the harder it is to stay agilely innovative. That's like one of those fact of life rules. It doesn't change. I don't care if you're in industry or government. The bigger you get, the more people you have to communicate with. You can have the power of getting better ideas, but it will take longer generally. How do we now change that? I don't know what the fastest we can get in innovation timelines. I know it's faster than today. How do we do that? DOD, we have focused some groups in Silicon Valley. We've got some groups going out other places, up in the Northeast, down in Texas. We are certainly reaching out with our allies. I mean, one of our investments, I will share that with you, it's now been made public. We are investing with the UK MOD in a company called Improbable. A very young company, started by two Oxford College guys, and when you hear what their premise was, you sit there and think, why didn't I think of that? They're a modeling and sim data company. If you've done any business in modeling and sim, one of the things everybody spends time on is they say, okay, let me figure out what is the statistically significant sample of the available data to plug into my simulation. Well, the key founder of Improbable said, you know what? Today, compute power is really good and it's pretty damn cheap. Why don't I just take all the data that's available and plug it in? Then that sounds, when I just said it, pretty simple. And frankly, it turns out to be pretty simple. They're doing that. The way they're doing that is pretty unique, and I think it will be a major game changer in how we look at modeling and sim and the results it will be able to produce. That's the kind of thought pieces, though, when you think about it. How do you do different things? How do you do things differently, and how do we get that? The last thing I'm going to say before I take questions is a little controversial, I guess, in this room. The technology is the really easy part. I am convinced all of you out there will get all of the technology right. What I'm not convinced, and I think the hardest part, is going to be getting all the culture that I just talked about right. Because that means you got to get that to be accepted widely, that everybody will do business that way. If we do that, technology will be there. You'll all build it. Some of the DOD labs will help build. We'll get the technology. The challenge for us is, will we get the culture piece right? Will we get the processes that need to change to support that culture right? That is truly going to be the hardest thing that we look at doing. Okay, last thing I'm going to say is I do believe that the Phillies are going to have a better year this year than last. I think the pitching is up. And once again, though I was wrong by one game, I am predicting UNC to win next year's NCAA final. I only missed it by one game. I know some of you in the media reported that last year. I just want credit. One game is all I missed it by. And I predicted it early. What questions do you have? Are they going to pop up on the screen here?
The first question is a multi-part question.
Multiple choice or multi-part?
Multi-part. Can you address the impact of transitioning to the RMF process in terms of additional manpower, schedule, and cost in the acquisition process? Have you seen any preliminary data indicating a percentage increase in those same areas? And finally, will the RMF be replaced by what the CNA working group develops?
So the answer is twofold, I think. I think the RMF actually moves some things better. Very candidly, I do think some of the acquisition people did not want to embrace that culture of change. I also think the RMF has problems. And yes, I think as we redo the certification and accreditation process, that certainly has to have impact on the risk management framework. It has to have. Does it replace it? I don't know if it replaces it completely, because that's more of a framework for thinking about this, and it has some other aspects that I think still need there. But it certainly impacts it. And in the end, obviously, we hope it drives down both acquisition time and cost. But I do think part of this is educating, and I'll take the hint. Maybe I did not direct enough time to be spent on educating the acquisition force on how to use RMF. What else?
Sorry. Given allied cooperation is so important, how do you see taking forward cyber technology with coalition partners? Which technologies are at the forefront in that?
I don't know that there's any single technology in the forefront, and I think how you take the technology forward is doing things like today, having meetings with your allies. So next week, is it next week? No, following week, the first week of May, I will be in the UK with all of my Five Eye partners, CIOs. We stood up a group about a year ago for all of the CIOs to get together and share things that we're doing. As a result of that, I mean, here's some things that we're working on specifically, so I think you would get an idea of the trends. Australia is leading a group on identity management. I do think you have to get away from the CAC card. Now, I want to be very careful, because all people are saying, oh my God, Halvorsen says we're killing the CAC card tomorrow. We're not killing the CAC card. That is a valuable way. and a much more secure way for us to do business today. Don't think the CAC card is the future of how you do identity certification. I think it's not sustainable. The Australians were ahead in some of that. They're leading a Five Eye group to look at what is the next 3 to 5 years. What does that bring in identity management? It's not just about the CAC card, but what are other ways to do authentication? How do you structure it so that our identity process means that the UK identity is accepted in my systems, and across the board, and with as many allies as we can partner with? We're working on that. We are certainly working on how do we get cloud and data standards closer together so that our data is easier to move around together. I think that's very powerful for us. We're looking at what is the data center of the future look like. And I actually don't like the term data center anymore. I think it's what is the data access and data repository structure look like? Because I think it's a change. I actually saw in Germany the wearable data center. And there was a vest, and it's not quite there yet, but there was a vest, and I forget what company, that you wear that you basically can walk around with like a terabyte of data. You can connect wirelessly to every guy. Basically, you could be like your own walking cloud. Or a fog, maybe, would be a better description. But that type of stuff in technology is going to really change the game. I mean, you think about what you can now process forward. I mean, when the Navy, had a program, collaboration at sea, that was basically based on this principle. We exchange all this data all the time back and forth. Let's just exchange the data that changed, that limited the bandwidth. Well, now with the power of processing that you can put forward in small footprint, that probably changed the way you model how you think about that. So the Canadians are leading some efforts around that for us. All of us playing, but parceled out. So that's the kind of things we're thinking about right now and have actually assigned some action groups on. What else?
Thank you. In line with your statement that we have to improve information flow between government and industry, particularly from government to industry, with the idea of increasing the velocity of innovation, would the department be open to the idea of creating perpetual libraries that make requirements and technical information available to industry on an ongoing basis to inform IR&D investments and expenditures?
Certainly open to the idea, and I actually think that's a pretty good idea. So yeah, I'll take that one back and think about it. There will be some issues we'll have to work through about particularly what funding data you can put forward. There is some law that we have to work on about that. But I think even if we just got to the point of here's the textual data we're all sharing. So yeah, Kate, write that one down. Thank you, Kate.
How could a best-of-breed industry solution assist in developing the right language to support an RFP without impacting the legal regulations within the acquisition process?
I don't know, but you guys have all the talent out there to figure it out. I mean, I don't know what you're saying on that. That's a really technical question. I think what I've laid out is that we're open to different ways of doing that. I don't know how you in industry will pull together that group, and frankly, I don't think you want our help on how to pull it together. I think you all should pull that together and present us what you think is a good way to do that.
Thank you. The DOD continues to ask for innovative ideas and ways to get us contract vehicles. What are your thoughts on how the method of funding and prioritization of the needs can be improved so good solutions can be bought and implemented?
See everything we've talked about this morning? I mean, I don't have, the questions are getting to where you want me to get specifics on process. I don't have those answers this morning. I think that's what we're trying to talk about. I think everything we're doing, reaching out to the concept of Silicon Valley, improving our dialogue, these type of events, are all ways we're trying to signal that we're open to different process discussions. I think the fact that we are trying to do with some of the stuff that Frank Kendall's doing, best buying, he's laid out that he's open to new suggestions. He's put the DIUX units out there to try to be able to start doing faster contracting and for us to learn more about the Silicon Valley concept of how quickly they have to turn things, which is a 6 to 9 month cycle, and how we can do that. We're open to continued input on how that gets better.
If you could take or give a responsibility to or from the services, what would it be?
I don't think I need to take or give any responsibilities to or from the services. So whoever asked that, that's a good question, and I'm glad you asked, because here's what I would tell you. I think at DOD, we had to change our mindset a little bit too, and I'll give you this example. Today, we have in the services different models for how we manage personnel. I think our initial ventures into trying to collapse the AFCEA net started with the premise that we would collapse the service models about how to manage. I don't need to do that. Each of the services has some reasons for how they want to functionally manage their service personnel. Now, that doesn't mean we can't share common IT. So I think what we have to do for the services is start teeing things up to say this. We can share common IT, which improves cost, enhances security and speed of operation. You can still have your functional management on top of that common IT system. And I think that applies throughout. Now, if we do that, does that mean we have to move to more enterprise culture? Certainly it does. Certainly the IT needs to be more enterprise, and that means the management of that culture will have to be more enterprise. And I think you're already seeing the services move to that. Al Lin, you can ask Al later. He is, besides being DISA, he is the commander of DOD, the task force that now manages the NIPR and SIPR. The services are responsive to Al when he says, listen, something's got to change. We got to do this. Is it perfect yet? No, it's like any stand-up. It will get there. But the services are on board with that. We made a DOD commitment, and people, I see the quotes, Halvorsen directs DOD to go to 10. Halvorsen couldn't do that without all of the cooperation of the services. Each of the services said, hey, we're in with that. That's a great argument. The agencies, led by DISA, said, that's a great argument. You've laid out a good solution. That makes sense for us. So I don't think we need to say, hey, DOD needs to run this. I do think what we need is just like you're going to have to get to in business, and some of you already have, is where we lay out a case. And when that case makes sense, the decision is made to go there. And if there is a dissenting, in my case, service, okay, well, you dissented. Your dissent was noted. But we, the rest of the board, then present it to the chairman and the secretary have made a decision we're going to go there. That is what we're operating on. And so far, we haven't had issues when we've meant to move with that working that way. And I think you will see that expand even more. Doing it that way lets us also have good dialogue. Some of the reports a couple weeks ago that came out in the press said, Army not in with moving to 10. Army can't get there, fighting back on schedule. Bob Farrell and I spend a lot of time together, as I do with the other ones, but I've known Bob a long time. We kind of grew up together. I started in the Army, Bob started in the Army, we kept in touch. What Bob was saying, what we weren't capturing is, hey, this is going to be a real challenge for the Army in certain aspects, particularly in the mobile force. It is. It is going to be a real challenge. They are very committed to getting there. My own guess, in a year we will hit 85 or 90% of DOD will be on 10. The vast size of DOD, our unique mission enterprise, we're going to have some parts of it that aren't going to work there. It will take us longer in some weapon systems to get there. But everybody is committed to that move. Frank Kendall signed out a memo last week telling all of the program offices, hey, you got to do this study. You got to come back with where you are at also in getting to Windows 10. So the whole department is committed to moving there. What else?
Your next question. The industry approach for sharing data is with crowdsourcing and secure social media. Does DOD have something similar in motion?
Well, DOD is on most social media. Do we use it as extensively as industry? No. Will we ever? I don't know. It does present us some interesting security issues. We will use it more than we do today. I do think you will see us embrace some of the newer crowdsourcing technology because it's more secure. And I do think that's something we need to look at. I won't name a couple companies, but there's a couple companies out there that have made some progress in how you do crowdsourcing that lets you have a little more control over not who's in the crowd, but how you put the data initially in a sanitized area so you can review it and look at it without putting your systems at risk. I think we will look at some of that and embrace it. I do think technology that enables you to do things like post a question, get the first set of answers, and then let the crowd hone down the top 2 or 3 answers for that is very powerful, and you will see us use more of that. We've actually done a couple experiments inside with the new joint service provider. That's where Al is trying to pull, with lots of help from us, sometimes more help than he would like, all of the Pentagon service providers. And the Pentagon had lots of IT service providers, more than maybe we needed at the time. So we are collapsing all of those into something called the Joint Service Provider, JSP. Now, this is much akin to industry takeovers. Some of them were friendly. Some of them are frankly hostile takeovers. And the people have had some issues. So what we are using this tool with is to reach out to all employees and the customers saying, okay, what's wrong, what's right, give us your opinions, which I think is making that go better. That's just one area. I think there are other areas, and I think innovation is an area we will certainly look at how we use these tools to get ideas in faster. What else?
Aside from cultural, are there any other challenges you foresee that would slow the progress of a successful JIE?
How much longer do we have? 10? We probably don't have. The answer is, of course, there are other challenges to that. But I think one of the things that I'm responsible for doing, and I don't usually like to say I, but I am responsible for this, is setting a positive attitude for change. So there's lots of challenges, but you know what? Everything we've ever done in DOD, everything you've done in industry has had lots of challenges. I don't think it actually helps us list all those. I think you want to focus on what the biggest challenge is, and for us it's culture. It's a change of data in an environment that says we're all thinking about it the same way and we're open to changes in the process. That's the single biggest challenge, and that's where I want to keep the focus. The JIE technology, frankly, Al and the DISA team with help from industry, that's all working really well, going where it needs to go. JIE is on track. Are there going to be hiccups with it? Absolutely. You don't do anything this big without some. But I do think the biggest piece will be, as we get it in place, everybody accepting and us be willing to say, I would say this, the JIE that was first thought about maybe 4 or 5 years ago is not the JIE we're fielding today. If it was, we would be really stupid. There'd be no other explanation. We had just been really stupid if we had done that. We've talked about the speed. So what I am happy about so far is the way the DOD and industry team is having dialogue about what can be changed. I think there's room for improvement there, but the fact that we're having that and we're continuing to evolve with JIE and how the JRSS structure looks is the right thing to do. Now that in itself is a cultural change. You know, our system, and frankly your response to our system is set up that we write this plan and then we just execute the plan. We write the plan 6 or 7 years in the past and then we execute and deliver on that. In the IT world, that's just criminally stupid. We've got to get in the process of saying, hey, this was the concept, this is what was good at that day, but as the technology changed, as the ability to use the technology changes. I mean, sometimes it's just somebody saying, hey, you know, we built this technology to do data source extraction, but guess what? To do that, it had to go down to data element discovery. Hey, that's a good thing. Let's adapt that. That's a change, and sometimes that's a change to the architecture and every other piece you're doing. That's okay. Not everybody thinks yet that that's okay. It has to be okay in this business. We've got to get to that. Now, that doesn't mean that every morning we wake up and change. But it does mean every morning we wake up and say, you know what, it could change today. And we've got to look at that. And there's going to be some times where we're going to say, hey, it's going to still take, you know, like 6 months to get it done. That's okay too. As long as we recognize it, know what that, and we made a conscious decision about that timeline, and not have the process drive a timeline that's not acceptable from either a mission, fiscal, or security standpoint. Too often, we've still let that happen. What else?
Thank you, Mr. Halvorsen. We have time for one more question.
All right, so we're going to do this one the old-fashioned way. Who's got the last question? All right, you win. Your hand went up first. What's your question?
Can you please talk about the decision to ban the purchase and the use of Lenovo computers?
No. I don't know of any decision to do that, and I saw some early reporting that somebody in the Air Force had said that. I don't know what level of source to come out. What I will tell you that we are still focused on is what are the standards, security standards, practices, supply chain that anybody has to meet to be acceptable on our networks, and that's what I'll stick by until I get some more data. Question was, there was something in the press yesterday and today about, and I think Amber, you can help me with this. I think originally it was from the Air Force banning Lenovo. Yeah, I don't need to see the memo. Apparently somebody in the Air Force may have written a memo that says they're banning Lenovo. I will say this, last time I looked, the Air Force doesn't get to issue guidance for DOD. And we're a big organization. Somebody may have issued that. We will certainly go look at that. Maybe there's a reason. Maybe they have done a security assessment and said for this, there's some reason. We will check that out. In general, it is DOD's philosophy to say, we're not going to ban anything. We're going to write standards. We're going to write security guidelines. And if you can comply with them, then you're able to buy that. Now, there may be something new that's happened that has said that Lenovo specifically needs to be banned in one area. I have not had a chance to run that down, but I will. Okay, thank you all for your time today.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Lieutenant General Bob Wood back to the stage to formally thank Mr. Halvorsen on behalf of AFCEA and our audience.
I really would like to thank Mr. Halvorsen for his animated and, as ever, inspirational presentation. The one word that comes to mind is zeal, and without question, commitment. And in lieu of a speaker gift, Mr. Halvorsen, we are making a presentation to the Fisher House on your behalf. I'd like to orient the audience at this point as we depart. We've got on the wingboard some of the information you would need to know. Of course, at lunch today, it starts right at 12 o'clock. Ask you to be in your seats at 11:55. Ms. Meg Whitman from HP, CEO of HP Enterprises, will be our speaker at lunch today. And at lunch, we invite you to take advantage of the opportunity to sit with senior leadership, which will be along the tables around the front here and along the aisle. You'll see a purple marker, and you'll have an opportunity to scan in the back who is sitting there. And it's really an opportunity, it's first come, first serve, for you to sit down with members and senior leaders of DOD and DISA and mission partners and have a chance to have lunch with them. Please take advantage of that. And also during the break, we've got another set of theater sessions, 5 theaters ongoing. Take a look when you go out. Great information being presented by our subject matter experts. And at 2:45 this afternoon, I'd point out we're having a panel led by General Basla, former Air Force CIO, and it's focused on a variety of CIO issues at the service level. The day closes today with a 4:15 to 5:15 focused networking. This is a first. It's a deep dive done with support of government and industry in 4 different rooms focused on enterprise capabilities, cyber, mobility, and network modernization. This is meant to be a conversation among those interested in those 4 topics where we can get industry and government talking specifically, meant to be a little bit more informal than necessary than we would normally have, with some drinks on the side for you to be able to discuss those topics in those rooms. Check your app. It'll tell you where they're at. And finally, take advantage as you break here of taking a look at our industry partners and check out their solution sets. Thanks for your attention this morning, and if we can, as you move out, clear quickly and we'll set the table for lunch. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending this morning's panel. Please clear the room quickly so that the catering staff may prepare for today's luncheon.